Hello, and welcome to Late to the Party, episode 13. This is the Geeks Unleashed monthly book club, which, in addition to our regular episodes, we kind of try to cover off some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. For our 13th and final episode of 2021, we are talking about Scott Pilgrim Volume 2, which is kind of fun because we're revisiting a series that we talked about in 2020. So this is Volume 2, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Versus the world. Anyway, as usual, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmine.
And we are joined once again by Rockin Robbie from the Pop Culture Philosophers. Welcome, Robbie.
Hey, what's up? Happy to be here. Station.
Come on, Jasmine.
Station. Which way does it go? Which hand?
Either or.
Doesn't matter. Okay, cool. All right, there we go.
Yeah. The station swings both ways.
Oh, I see.
Can you use both hands?
Oh, you have to have a third one then.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Use your foot or something like that. My flexibility faded away a long time ago. So when I was a kid, I used to be able to put my toe in my mouth. There's no way I could do that now.
Oh boy,
that's a cool talent to have.
No,
maybe one day I'll try that. So actually, do you know what? I reckon I could, but it would really hurt to put my leg that far up now. So
no thanks.
Anyway, Robbie joined us on the book club after, you were on episode 3, which was our, we were kind of getting into the swing of things, and we felt last year it was quite a nice way to end the year. And when me and Jasmine were planning out the last few episodes, we're like, actually, it's been a long year. It'd be nice to end on something easy,
on a light note. Nothing heavy.
Nothing heavy. So it's been a heavy year, I think, with various things. So we thought, why not? So yeah, again, cheers for just come back. And
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be back, and I'm glad to continue revisiting Scott Pilgrim with you. We should make this an annual tradition. I'd be down for that. It's a Christmas thing for us.
I said that to Jasmine. We'll just, we've got 4 more years now, and we'll finally get but yeah, we'll see you back here in 4 years for volume 6.
Nice.
The books get thicker and thicker as you're going along. So
it doesn't feel lengthy to read it. It is such an easy read, thankfully.
Yeah.
I feel it went quicker than volume 1.
Yeah, probably just because we're familiar with the characters this time. Yeah. So it was really easy to just jump right in and go with it. By the time I got to like the last page, I was like, oh no, that's it. Dang it.
I know, I was a bit disappointed. It made me more eager to jump into volume 3, I think. So anyway, Jasmine's gonna summarize. She's like the queen of summary.
Oh, I don't really know how I got that title, but I'm gonna roll with it. All right.
I made it up. I made up a lot of names for you, Jasmine, and that's.
I know. None of them have really worked out, but we'll roll with the queen of summaries. Okay.
Yeah, none of them you've allowed me to use either. No.
With good reason. Your nicknaming skills are terrible, sir.
I was once messaging her, Robbie, before we get into this, just with all different nicknames for her to use online. And in the end, she goes, right, that's it, I quit. Yeah, she didn't like any of mine.
No, they were terrible. They were all terrible. All right, so volume 2 is obviously a continuation of the first volume. In the first volume, we kind of got introduced to the first of the Evil X's from the League of Evil X's. This volume, we get introduced to the second Evil X, who happens to be Lucas Lee. We also get a little bit more sort of insight into Ramona and Scott's relationship. We still have Knives Chow, who is she's going through some things in volume 2, to put it mildly. Basically, the band is, trying to get themselves out there. They want to do more stuff, but it's a lot more following Scott and Ramona around as a couple versus, them getting to know each other outside of them being an item. So it's just a much easier kind of volume, I think, to follow. The way that the story flows, it's really just about the two of them and the kind of weird shenanigans that end up happening. So it's I don't know, it's easier, I guess, than the first one because we've already done all the introductions. We already know all of the people. We do meet a new band. Well, we are introduced to the concept of a new band. We haven't actually met this band just yet, but Don't worry, they will have their own volume, it seems.
Before we get into anything, actually, how did you all read it, Jasmine? Why did you read it?
Digitally, because it is included in Comixology Unlimited. So as long as you are paying for a Comixology subscription, you can read Scott Pilgrim. Actually, when we did this the first time, you could only read volume 1, and now all 6 volumes are included in the Unlimited version of Comixology. So
convenient.
Nice. Yeah, very.
Yeah. Comixology should sponsor us for the amount of
I know, for the amount of money that I give them. Yes.
Well, and also you mentioned them a lot on the podcast, so may as well. They should give us some money. How'd you read it, Robbie?
If we're gonna do this legit, we might as well do it legit. Come on, Comixology, help us out here.
They'll take a kickback. I read these hardcovers, the the colorized hardcovers. With I got Nathan Fairbairn did the coloring on it.
Same as
I read it that way, and the last time I read it, I tried to read the big omnibus where there's like 2 of these books in one, and I don't know, the paperback just didn't quite work. I really liked the experience of this small hardcover, this nice paper. It's a nice printing of it, and it's got a bunch of extra features and stuff. So it was a really cool, pleasurable way to re-experience this.
I think so. I remember. So I had the original black and white ones, and I never read all 6 of them, but I did read the first couple in black and white, and I definitely prefer the color. I've got to be honest, I love the coloring throughout this book. So actually, it's kind of a nice little segue actually into what did you think about the art, Robbie?
Oh, I think the art's actually a lot better than the first one. The coloring on the colorized versions is amazing, and that's really cool. But the artwork itself, okay, so I think that Brian is able to kind of increase his level of, he's already done the first book, right? So now as he's approaching the page, he's thinking about more storytelling tricks. He's thinking more about his composition. He's thinking more about architecture. He's actually taking photos of places in his neighborhood that he's using, and really great renditions of it to set a little bit more of that local atmosphere and a certain tone about it as well, right? So I think that it's constructed through the artwork much more than the first issue. Now, this is something I think we see throughout the course of this entire series, is seeing Lee O'Malley's whole artwork just kind of come together and evolve. And that's one of the cool things about this. It's kind of I don't know, you were talking about how the books get thicker as they go. And I was thinking that's kind of like Harry Potter. It starts really small, then gets bigger. Dark Tower does the same thing. That last book's 1,000 pages. It's killing me. It's just taking so long. But you're able to see him evolve like you did the students in that book, right? In those movies, you get to see his artwork evolve. And if you look at his stuff that he's doing now, which he's mostly doing, I guess, the writing and whatnot, but his artwork has stepped up, and you can start seeing that happen between volumes 1 and 2. Like I said, it's the composition, it's certain storytelling tricks, a little bit more effortlessness, it seems, with texturizing some of the backgrounds. And I just thought it was super, super solid.
I thought the characters were a little bit more emotive too. I thought I was just making that up though. But now that you say that, I do think that the characters, the way that he draws their faces, there's a bit more emotion in the faces of the characters this time around.
Especially Knives.
Yeah.
Right. Because Knives just is there's some moments where you're like, oh man, you literally stop. It jolts you as a reader, and it takes control of it, of the pace from you, and it's something that's fantastic.
Actually, I've got this up actually, because I thought it was this double spread here. That's actually Knives there. I know people listening can't see this, but the double page spread of Knives versus Ramona. But I love this double page spread. I mean, even Ramona's face is pretty I'm gonna get you. So,
that whole bit reminds me of some Elektra versus Daredevil stuff. Knives is totally Elektra, just showing up with those knives.
With those knives,
yeah, man. She's got the scarf on. It's a really cool, because it gets action packed, and the book is so quirky, but the artwork is still very cartoony, right? He's a cartoonist, and that's what he's doing. But he's starting to evolve in the tricks of the trade. He's starting to understand more about how to tell this story visually.
It does feel more comic-y this time. If that's a word, it is now. But it feels comic-y again. So yeah.
I think it does well to blend the realism, like you say. He's taking photos of where he lives, entwined with the gaming aspect that he's brought in, like when he defeats Ramona's evil ex-boyfriend, and the sort of magic box pops up a bit like a Mario type thing, and it made me think of like Mario Kart, and you know, when you're driving along and the things pop up and you have to get the boxes to, is it Mario Kart? You know, like those go-karting type things. Yeah. So it made me think of that. Like, and I love all that stuff. Like, and it when they use the artistic lettering, like item pops up. It kind of, it had that whole sort of 60s Batman pal type vibe about it. So I sort of loved how they intertwined that kind of art into it. But you know, you talked about Knives' emotions though. I love that whole scene artistically where it's almost like her evil transformation. So like I was just thinking of things like, I don't know, like the Joker or something, where she's turning into a villain. But the whole scene was really just quite a powerful scene, and on the look on her face, I think was done really well. Just her variety of emotions. So, well,
I told you in the summary she was going through it. She was having some issues in this volume.
Yeah, she
I feel bad for her in this story, man. Like, really,
she gets mistreated so bad. Like, they do her so dirty.
And then at the end, there's this bit at the end when she finds out that the lead singer of the other band is Scott's ex-girlfriend, and then like that's her new favorite band, like that she owns. And then she has another look, and you're like, she's about to have a just complete breakdown, man. I feel bad for her.
Yeah, she can't get away.
Yeah, because Scott's a D-bag.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I mean, it's terrible, man.
What do you think about the coloring in this book? Either one of you.
That's just but the same. I think it's very vibrant. It's fun. It's nice to be able to, because I think Ramona's hair color is like such a big thing. Like, it's nice to be able to see it change as we go through each volume. So I love the colors. I don't have any. I mean, I think they're great.
I definitely prefer the colored version over the black and white. I know we've talked about previously some books suit black and white, like Mouse and V for Vendetta, but I actually think this book, because of its gaming and stuff like that, it suits having colors in. What do you think, Robbie?
Yeah, it definitely suits having the color there, because like you said, it's got the video game aspect. It's got this like vibrant, flashy tone that does come across with the energy of the story in the black and white, the original, like little, and they're smaller too, but having a larger size, these colors are really great. Like the color choices, the palettes, the way it shifts, the way it changes, they actually add a little bit more depth. You see some of the shading that's provided by that color. It's Nathan Fairbairn, and he's the guy that does a lot of the Sean Phillips stuff over the years. So he knows color theory. He understands how to make it work, and he can even take something like with the very simplistic line work of Scott Pilgrim and make it like have a richness about it that it doesn't have, I think, on the black and white. But it is cool in the black and white to see like the line work on its own. So it's cool that we have it in both versions, basically.
I agree with you. I loved how they went from sort of the dark elements. Like, you know, I loved it. Actually, it was towards the end where they introduced that new band, and it all went sort of really dark before they came on. I loved how he went from that. It's sort of, you know, here we go. It's this really sort of dark page in here, and then the next page, like, it's just complete. I mean, what an amazing talent to be able to flip between that darkness to this bright splash pages. And yeah, I think Nathan Fairbairn has done a really fantastic job taking what was already established, you know, in the black and white books,
but really making it pop.
Yeah, he does a really good job of making it pop. I definitely, when I saw these colored versions, I was like, I'm getting these hands down. I thought they looked really good. So when the book starts, though, let's get into the story. The first, I don't know, 10, 20 pages are a flashback of pre-volume 1. And we get to meet some sort of brand new characters like Lisa, and we get to see a little bit more about Scott before he moves. And just sort of wondered what you guys think of seeing that sort of flashback and seeing that aspect of Scott's life. What about you, Robbie?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, this is something that we get. This is why you do a series of books like this, right? You give us one meaty chunk of the story and you tease us into learning more. They even do that in the first volume. Scott's like Ramona asked him about his ex, or something, like, why'd y'all break up? He's like, well, that's a story for later, maybe volume 2. He's like, why'd you break up with your ex? She goes, well, that's another story. He goes, maybe volume 3. Right? It's kind of tongue-in-cheek approach to it, but like, I mean, that's what they're doing. This is just story structure where now we have to learn a little bit more about Scott, why Scott is where he is. That starts picking up on what I think is one of the overall themes, especially the earliest volumes of Scott Pilgrim, which is, and I think O'Malley says it himself, is how our high school experience influences our early 20s and how that influences who we become. Like, we like to always write it off like very early on. And this is something you see in the story. We write it off very early on, like, oh, that was forever ago. We don't remember it. Scott tells Ramona in this book, oh, I don't even remember my high school girlfriends. Lies. Lies. One of them's your drummer. One of them's your drummer, you know? And so you're getting into the hows and the whys of how Scott becomes like this. You would learn a little bit more about his relationship with his parents. He's kind of got this bratty kind of vibe about him, right? Like, he doesn't take responsibility for things. And so seeing some of how this develops, and especially the way that he has relationships with women, you see it in its earliest stages, and it starts making a bit more sense and sometimes scarily familiar.
I was going to say that point you said there about the things in our earlier life affect how we are now. I think there's like our intro, well, obviously pop culture, we've talked about that before, that came into our lives earlier, but I was more thinking about this recently with music, like, you know, how a lot of music has, I think music can link to a part of the life that you're in. And I really struggle to get into modern music. Like, it's something I really struggle with. Like, I've really struggled to find a band or anyone new, because a lot of that stuff's when I was going out, like, you know, when I was going out being young, and that music was associated with more when I was, I guess, a rebellious, annoying person. Like, and I really struggle with now, because the music, anything new is going to be listened to most likely in most cases in this house
with your kids.
With my kids, or when I'm driving, or whatever. And it's kind of like, I don't know, they're not, I do enjoy driving, and obviously I enjoy living in this house, but it's more like that music you associate with your friends and having a good time, and sometimes that music links to different emotions that you might be having as a youth. So I can see, you know, like what you were saying there. I just wanted to link that. I think that was something I've actually been thinking about a lot myself, really. So and
music's a big part of the book and their experience with it, you know, and so that's totally spot on, man. And I also have trouble getting into new music, trust me, but you know, sometimes you just got to jump in and trust Spotify and
trust the algorithm.
My problem is I'll listen to something and be like, oh yeah, that's really good, and then never think about diving in. Like, I don't do that anymore, diving into somebody's catalog,
oh my god, same,
right?
Yeah, like I can listen along with the radio, and like I know most of the songs now on the radio, but like, do I remember the artist when I'm not listening to it? No, probably not. Like,
meanwhile,
could I pick Charlie Puth out of a lineup with Shawn Mendes? No, I have no idea what they look like, but I just know their names. You know what I mean? Like,
back in the day, we're going to like CD shops and buying up
concerts, waiting in line.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, well, I'm definitely not doing none of that anymore.
Well, I think that actually is something in this book as well. Like, they show things like the video shop and stuff like that. So, you know, when he goes there and when he can't get any videos out because of his late fees, and I laughed at that because I can only tell half of this story. Like, so so basically, like, my friends used to use my video account, and something similar happened where I went into my video shop and I went in there to get video, and they were like, no man, you've got 2 videos out. I was like, I haven't got 2 videos out, I've been away for 2 weeks. Like, and they were like, and so then I thought, oh, I know exactly where those 2 videos are. Like, so a phone call was made, and they were like, oh yeah, sorry man, like, I'll bring them down now. But there was more to this story, but I won't elaborate any further. But I could completely relate to that scene. So I think these books are great for me. They remind me obviously of my youth, but equally I think there's a lot to be said for things like video shops and CD shops and record shops, and those are sort of hangout places as well, where you can pick up new things. And I guess the only thing that really has stayed is the comic shop, luckily. So, and long may that continue.
And how crazy is it that when this book came out, it was very like fresh. It was very hip. Like this was what like youth culture felt like. I mean, we were youth where I was, at least, you know what I'm saying? I'm not speaking for y'all, but you know, so like it's so weird to watch it now. It's like archaic. They're like, if you read, like kids read today, like, well, they're going to a video store. They what are they doing? Like, what, late fee? I don't understand this concept. Like, and I also love that it's Land Before Time, and it's like been away for forever, and like they lost it, and Scott claimed that, like, what was it, like a mouse hit it or something like that. It's a nice little comedic touch down there.
I did think where is it, you know, completely got sidetracked now, but you know the game, oh sorry, I want to talk about the games and the villains though, like the progression of the villains, and something was occurring to me, you know, every time you're like, I was thinking like Streets of Rage, every time you're fighting, you know, at the end of every sort of 2 or 3 levels, you have to fight a harder boss. Do you remember Streets of Rage? Like, and with this book, obviously, you know, we meet another villain. What do you think about the growth of the villains in terms of their hardness? Do you think the villain progressed in terms of the hardness? I personally didn't. I think it was a bit of an easy defeat.
Oh man, I thought that Lucas Lee, like, that was it was so anticlimactic. I was like,
I know.
That's it. All that big talk. We sit around, you smoke a cigarette, and then you just die. Like,
I was disappointed by that fight. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't disappointed by the book as a whole, but I was disappointed by that confrontation, because they are building up these evil ex-partners, and unfortunately, that one didn't really work for me.
Yeah. I think it's almost like something that he's doing structurally with the story, where he's saying that's not the important bit. Like, don't think that this is about him fighting or defeating the exes. Think of it as, this is a story about him and Ramona and Knives and everybody else, because the big ultimate climax is the reveal of the new band, which does lead us to the third ex-boyfriend. So it's a nice cliffhanger. But when you're reading it, you can't help but feel disappointed, because you're like built up, like, oh, he's an actor, like it's going to be a big thing. And he just does the skateboard and he just disappears. And it's so weird. And I love when he gets the item and he can't use it. He's like, oh man, I never learned how to skateboard. I never opted for that. And so like, it just goes away. And that's a fun little bit. But you're right. That villain, it was like a little bit built up, but then I don't know, man. It's weird to read this one structurally because of the way, you know, a lot of the other ones are. But it's a very chaotic thing. But it's more because it's about the actual, like, I guess, human story that's going on in the midst of all this craziness. But even in the movie, that scene I think is done a little bit better.
Oh yeah, because they actually, well, I mean, they had Chris Evans to work with in that one, but they also had like the clones or the stunt doubles that give a little bit more to the fight sequence in the film for this villain.
Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy I liked the bit where they sat down and was like, oh, let's have a cigarette and let's have a chat first. I thought, oh, that's quite cool. Like, you know, because initially the fight, he swings Scott through like a clock tower or something, and he sits down for a bit of a chat. And I thought, okay, that's cool. We'll get to know the guy a little bit before.
Hey man, I got some carrots and some crackers.
Some Ritz crackers. Like, Scott's like, that sounds really good. Okay. Although I do love that the first interaction between them is just like Scott getting his teeth punched in, like, hey man, can I have your autograph? But he can't even get it all out before he gets punched in the face. Like, I thought that was hilarious,
especially after hearing how Scott's such a great fighter, and you're like, what? How?
Exactly.
I think you're wondering how Scott is such a, in speech marks, good fighter, because he doesn't come across like he's good at much, in all honesty. So like, to hear that he's a good fighter, I'm like, really? Okay,
you sure?
Like, yeah, where did that come from? So actually, so talking about the characters, obviously we've got getting a little bit more insight into some of the characters, and some of the characters do evolve, some of the characters kind of stay the same. Just sort of wonder what your thoughts on, well, obviously to all of us, but the character journey of these characters and who's gotten the most growth so far. Go on, Robbie, what do you think?
Knives has the most growth so far.
Yeah.
We first meet her in the first volume, and she's a very impressionable young woman in high school, and now she's like found a scene and an identity and like a like she just found a world that she wants to be a part of. And then she goes through the ringer, like Jasmine said at the beginning. She goes through a lot of stuff, and that's the most growth. Aside from that, what we're learning is more about the other characters, and I really like that. The growth of the relationship between Scott and Ramona is actually quite charming, right? But there's tons of times, and I love this because this is like an old school, like indie type trick where Scott's an unreliable, he's not a narrator really, but he's an unreliable hero, right? He's not necessarily a good guy. He's not really likable, but there's something, at least for me, that I see of myself in him. And so it's like, dude, just calm down. Things can work out. You just got to calm down. Like the way he just spazzes out and freaks out about the most random thing when he's like having an intimate moment or something like that. Like, it's just like, calm down, kid. Like, you could get there. You just got to calm down. So I like the growth of that relationship, but Knives is the character to me and then that's why she's on the cover of the book in book 2, because in the original one, it's Ramona, but now it's her because this is a woman scorned.
I actually love that cover of her. I do agree. I think Knives had the most probably fun in a way in this book. In terms of her character journey, she, like you said in the first one, she was kind of the naive girl, impressionable, sweet, holding hands, and then falling. And actually, she uses the love word in this book, and actually, that was done really well. How she did that artistically, the way love just came out of her mouth, like can only do that in comics. Like so, and then to get rejected and burned. So when you said earlier about Scott being a D-bag, there was so much of this book I was like, Scott's so selfish. It's like he for meant to be in Space Trunks again, the hero of the book, and it's a questionable hero. Like it's difficult to say he's the hero, but I guess he is the main point. But I was thinking back to, I think he's 23, isn't he? So I was like 23. What was I like? I was probably a dick too. Like, so.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, it's really different than the first volume, because in the first volume, he's kind of like a lovable idiot. But in this one, it's not that he's malicious. It's just like, wow, you're a real prick. Like,
and it's not even an intentional, like, malevolent thing, right? It's like, it's just that he just ignores responsibility. Like any form of responsibility or ownership of a situation. He hides his head in the sand and he just ignores it and it goes away. And then he's skating through his life on the grace of his friends and family, basically. And he's not very appreciative of it. Right. And, man, I don't know why we're supposed to like this guy, but
right. Like that's what I found myself asking.
The point is, maybe we're not supposed to,
maybe
I think the point. I think because obviously Brian Lee O'Malley has put a lot of himself into Scott Pilgrim, and people grow up, don't they? So I'm, thinking.
You hope they do anyway.
Well, yeah, okay, not everybody grows up. I'll put, we all know that guy is 40 years old who still acts like he's 20, but there's always one of them. So, but most people, I think, do tend to try and grow up to a degree, and but this guy between 20 and 25. It did get me thinking, like, I would love to know, I'd love it if Brian Lee O'Malley was to do a Scott Pilgrim in his 40s, like to find out what this guy's actually up to. Like, did he actually grow up in the end? Obviously, I've not read up to volume 6, so I don't know if there's what the growth is like throughout the 6 volumes, but I am curious to see Scott's progression as a character. I didn't feel that he progressed too much between volume 1 and 2. The relationship between him and Ramona grew, and I liked actually that Ramona, I don't think it's necessary for couples to write lists about their partners, which I think is a little bit harsh, as we've seen in Friends, and but I did think Ramona's list kind of highlighted a lot of Scott's problems, so mainly around the apartment, but they are extensions of Scott, so she was trying to draw attention to that, and I hope maybe Scott might pay some slight attention.
I mean, he did point out that there are lights, because she said that there were no lights, and he said, no, they're lights. And so then she said, no natural light.
Yeah.
And Scott took that as a win.
Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. He got one strike through. That's a win for him.
That whole scene did make me think of Friends, though. The Ross
18 pages, front and back.
No, not that.
Oh, not that one.
No, not that bit. The one where Ross writes a list about whether to be with Rachel or not.
Yeah.
And he's like, one of the negatives that she was a waitress or something like that. Like, anyway, I digress. But yeah, so that list reminded me of that particular thing. But again, another sort of pop culture type thing in these books. I think these books are very much pop culture of their time. So but yeah, no, overall I think Knives' growth was the most for me. The relationship between Ramona and Scott, I think, was nice to see as well. That progression was good. What about you though, Jasmine?
Same, like Knives. I thought that it was super interesting in how she called in reinforcements immediately, and she was like, no, I need you, like I need a shoulder to cry on, I need you to get over here, like be here in 20 minutes. And then she just like dives right in. She's like, no, screw it, I'm dyeing my hair, like we're gonna fix this, and I'm gonna make him regret it, because like, isn't that what every teenager thinks? Like, you broke up with me, I'm gonna make you regret that decision. And it's like, best thing you can do is just move on. Don't try to make anybody regret it.
I think she had the best line of the whole book, chow down, like that.
My God.
That was the best line. I was like, that was so good. I was like, did he think this through? Like, did he actually plan that? Like when he created Nice Chow, I was like, I hope he did. I hope he thought, like, when she's having that fight with Ramona and she shouts out "chow down," I was like, that was good. Like, I need to save that somewhere.
Mark was really digging the puns.
Yeah, that
I like a good pun too, man.
Yeah, that was a good pun. Like, and I like the fact that her name is Knives and she uses knives. I mean, there's
just all around, man.
Yeah,
there's comic book.
There's so much thought put into that name. So, anyway, there's some running gags throughout the book. So, do you have a favorite gag, Robbie, throughout the book?
A favorite gag?
Yeah.
Well, I love the coin gag.
Yeah,
which I really like, and I like that. Yeah. This time he got $14. Yeah. And last time he complained that it wasn't enough for bus fare or something. And then this time he complains that it's more, but it's all in change. Yeah, it's all coins. So I just like the random video game stuff, right? Like, and the idea, like she's like, so are we an item? And he's like, in his head, he's got the mushroom, the fire flower, and the star from Mario, and just things like that. So I like those kind of like little cartoony, fun little bits there.
What about you, Jasmine?
Oh man, I love the running theme of him telling Kim to just read the book, because Kim keeps asking questions that were answered in volume 1, and he's like, just read the book, like, just read the book.
Like that 4-4 break-in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite. And like, there was a scene early on where him and Wallace are on a bus, and Wallace is getting off the bus, and he's like, oh, by the way, I got somebody coming over, so you got to go somewhere else tonight. And Scott's like, but this is our stop. And as Wallace has gotten off the bus, like each frame, the bus gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but you can still see those speech bubbles. And Scott is just like bitching after Wallace for leaving him on the bus like that.
Yeah, talking about his mother and stuff.
Yes,
it's really funny.
I was really having to squint. I couldn't make out the last speech bubble. I just couldn't do it. I don't think my eyes are good enough anymore. So someone might be able to read it. I might get my 7-year-old to read it for me.
It'll wind up being something your 7-year-old should not read.
Yeah. She'll be like, "What does this C word mean?" I'm like, no. Close the book. So yeah, bless them. Anyway, no, running gag for me. I love like all the jokes about Scott and what's his name, Stephen Stiles, living together. Like just the constant jokes about whether they're a couple or whatever, or you know.
Oh, with Wallace.
Wallace. Sorry, Wallace. Yeah. About them all living together and how did
that was on Ramona's list. She clearly took issue with him sharing a bed with a gay man.
And then she even got asked during the book, how did you end up living together? He's like, oh, that's and changes the subject. Oh, that's another story or whatever. Like, he doesn't want to. I want to know. I want to know how do you end up sharing a bed with your mate? Like, and just that's an ongoing thing, whether you're straight or not. Like, I don't want to do that long term. Or at all, really. Like, so I think once or twice in my life have I had to share a bed with a male.
Yeah, when you were like 21 and you went to Vegas and you had 7 people in one hotel room. Yes, that's one thing, but like, no, not as like your regular everyday life.
No.
And it's just like a mattress on the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the one chair there, and they have to like Yeah, like Wallace has to do the bit where he's like, "Don't come home tonight," and then there's another night where Wallace doesn't come home because Ramona's there, and like, man, that's weird.
Can you imagine, Robbie, if you and Jelani shared an apartment and you just had a double bed and it's just two of you every night?
Nope.
No way, no way.
And one of you doesn't work at all.
Couldn't do it. Couldn't handle it.
No.
And wore your socks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I couldn't do any of that.
Oh no, I would be in jail for murder. Like there would be. Oh man, like, are you wearing? Is that my? Are you? Okay, no, we need to talk. We need to talk about this.
So, anyway, so there's a new band in town. What's it? Clash at Demon Head, which is one of the members happens to be Scott's ex, and there's another who is also Ramona's ex. Do you think there's any underlying sort of message or themes sort of relating to this band at all? Well, go on, Robbie. You love messages.
Well, I mean, it's the whole as far as a personification of Scott not acknowledging his issues and addressing his issues and then moving forward from his issues is his ex-girlfriend, right? Yeah. And his ex-girlfriend being the front runner of this band, plus it's a band that's offering his band some like possibility at success. And it goes to show you that that's not important to him, right? He doesn't really care about it. And I love how the bandmates get all kind of freaked out. And like the one, Kimberly shows up in like heels, and then the one dude gets a haircut. And I also love, that's a great bit too, where they always call that guy by his first and last name. There are people in my life that we do like that. Like, that's just the way it is, man. And so that's really, really fun. But that's, I mean, it's representing the ultimate bit in the beginning of this story of, it's the personification of Scott not acknowledging the things that are holding him back, right? His avoidance of responsibility. He's just even willfully unaware, it seems, of that it's a problem not to have a couch when you have a lady over and you're having dinner, to not have a table, right? Like, this is this foreign concept to him, right?
Yeah, but his comeback though was, but you don't have a couch either. And she was like, yeah, but I don't have a TV either.
Yeah, that's true. Like, why do I need a couch if I don't have a TV? I'm always rollerblading, right?
Yeah.
Working for Amazon.ca in the very early days, where I remember it was just like books and CDs and stuff. So there's that. And then of course the next obstacle, which is that on, the inner level, and then on the outer level, the next ex-boyfriend's there too. And then the band represents a level that this band, Sex Bomb, has to overcome as well. So I think that was rather really, really cool how it wasn't the second ex-boyfriend that's the big deal. It's his ex. His ex is the big deal here.
Yeah, she even gets a cover in volume 3.
Does.
I agree with you though. There's a lot of people who don't like to deal with their issues. It's like the whole, well, you said actually at the beginning of the episode, like Scott buries his head in the sand. So, and I think he buries his head in the sand a lot, but the ex-girlfriend is the biggest thing he buries his head in the sand with. He doesn't seem to want to reconcile his feelings or deal with them. And I actually had this conversation with someone yesterday. You can't have a relationship with someone of any kind unless you're happy with your own life. And he hasn't bothered to deal with his own life. And he kind of wants to get Ramona and have his priority. It's a stupid priority, really. His priority is to have a relationship with someone else, regardless of all the problems and crap in his life. The no job, living in it on his mate's double bed, whatever, and not dealing with how he feels about, essentially getting dumped by his ex-girlfriend. Those are all things that you need to address and be happy with. I said there's someone else. You need to be happy with your own life, have your own things in your own life, have your own hobbies, almost be self-sufficient. So when that person comes along, they're an addition, not they don't make your life. That's kind of like, for me, like what I take from this. So
and Ramona recognizes it too. Like, there's one point where she calls him lame. She's like, "You're lame," but like, I'm okay with it. Like it's clear where the dynamic is here, and I can see that you are just kind of a loser. But I'm willing to overlook that. And it seems like he's just like okay with being there. Like, no ambition, no nothing. Yeah.
And then leads us into the question of who is Ramona and what has happened to her that has led her to be someone who is willing to settle for someone like Scott.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, because it's like what I guess are these ex-boyfriends, like, were they just so horrible to her that actually Scott's such a nice guy? So
It didn't seem that way though. Well, I mean, the way that she explains each of the boyfriends in the movie, like as the fights come up, and it's all basically like, I dated that guy in 7th grade for like 3 days. I dated that guy in 9th grade for like a week and a half. It's all very trivial stuff.
But then they have a different story. Remember, like she's like, "Oh, this was nothing," and blah. And then no, she started dating. She went some other what's the word they keep using? Like some kind of young and poshy kind of guy, or so like jockey, or I don't know. She always has to go for like this other kind of guy or something.
The pretty boys, yeah,
the pretty boys. And so like there is a mystery there with her as well that's going to develop. So
yeah,
I look forward to seeing how it evolves. Like, I mean, so you've read all 6 of you?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. I was there. Black and white, tiny little books.
I do remember I did buy the first couple, and then just life got in the way, and I never carried on going. Hence why this book club exists, to go back and catch up. So
I haven't read them since way back in the day, though. This is almost like it's like 15 to 20 years old now. Like, it's crazy to think about it. So this has been the first times I've been revisiting them. So I'm really excited to read book 3 next year.
How did so it did get me thinking, maybe we should speed it up a little bit, like, but maybe this should just be the Christmas thing. We just come back every year. Like,
all of a sudden people start talking about Scott Pilgrim as a Christmas book, and people are like, where did that come from?
Oh, you know where it came from.
Yeah. Geeks Unleashed started it. How did you actually hear about Scott Pilgrim? How did you find out about it? Were you working in comic shops at the time, or did you?
Yes, I've been working in and out of comic shops for about over 20 years now, and so that's crazy to think about. So yeah, I mean, I've always just been plugged into the industry. I've always paid attention to it. So yeah, like when it came out, we knew Oni was still a big deal. Like in these days, like Oni was amazing. That was where Greg Rucka really kind of got his start on books like Whiteout and Queen and Country. Oni Press did a lot of really good stuff. Judd Winnick, The Adventures of Barry Ween, Boy Genius. Guy Davis had a book there. Dan Brereington with the Nocturnals. Oni had some really great like indie type stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s. Kevin Smith was over there with Jim Mafu doing Clerks books. So I was always paying attention to that company in particular. They were kind of like the way we talk about Vault and Boom and Aftershock now. That's Oni was that back in those days.
Do you remember what people's reactions were to this book then back then?
A lot of people, for instance, people in the local music scene, like the garage rock and punk scene, they really responded well to this. And I did too, because this mirrored our lives, like hanging out at record shops, hanging out at the video store, having these like little crappy retail jobs, but like being able to hang out, going out to shows, drinking, getting into no good type things, bunch of different personalities, bunch of different types of people in different circles, and running into people from high school. They do that a lot in this book too, where they're like just like talking to 2 other former classmates. And that's something that would happen in your early 20s if you stay in your local spot, as you just keep running into the same people. And then eventually it's less and less and less and less. So, I mean, people in that, like in the youth scene back then, like those my age, we really dug it. We thought it was cool. It wasn't something that sold gangbusters, but it was like people that really liked to dig into things like Mike Mignola or Mike Allred, and like really old school fans of things like Frank Miller and stuff like that. Like people that like the independent stuff, they were aware of it. And a lot of people in the youth scene, or that liked video games, were really into it. And it was, some people have cited to me that it was a bridge for them into manga because of the way it was formatted. So
that's fair. I think with the original formats, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were very intended much to like do that. He was trying to like kind of mimic that, because we were talking a lot about manga now, but even back then it was making a lot of waves. So
did you hear about this earlier on, or did you just hear about it, Jasmine, from us saying this to read it? How did you hear about
I first heard about it with the film.
Okay. I used to get the bus to work before I learned to drive, and I used to have a little iPod, and do you remember iPods? So,
well, of course we do. Maybe not everybody listening does.
So I used to download a few podcast episodes of different podcasts that I liked, and I used to keep them on my iPod. And I used to listen to, I don't know if you've heard of them, the iFanboys. Do you know Robbie,
yeah.
iFanboy?
Yeah.
So I used to listen to the iFanboy podcast quite regularly. And I remember, I think it was Ron who was on there. Yeah, it was Ron. Getting really excited about Scott Pilgrim. And I remember him describing how it was like a normal story, love story between two characters, and out of nowhere it turned into a video game sort of type fight. And I was like, what is this book? Like, and I went and tracked down the first, sort of black and white book. But that's how I came across it. I didn't have any local comic shops, so I had to I lived out of London. Had to get the train into London to pick up my comics regularly. So there was no hanging around with mates at the comic shop to sort of find out new stuff. So although the guy there I used to chat to whenever I used to go in once a month and pick my stuff up, so it was difficult. You wouldn't hear that conversation that you hear when you're in a store regularly, like different people's recommendations. So that's why I used to love things like iFanboy, just because I could hear because at the time the three of them lived in New York, a bit like where you guys probably all live in the same town, and when you do your podcast get to chat together. So
yeah.
So that was like my way of hearing it. It was like three other people chatting and having a laugh. So
That's awesome.
Maybe we will inspire someone to go out and pick up these books as well. Maybe we will pay it forward by doing the same thing.
They're constant sellers at my shop. Constant sellers. People are still remember the movie. People are always looking for this, are always wanting to upgrade to the colored hardcovers. And this book they always sell. So there's still an audience out there. If you haven't checked it out, you want to know what it was like back at the last days of the CD shops and the video rental stores.
Oh man,
Scott Pilgrim.
I used to work at a secondhand bookstore, and we sold like CDs and records and old software that people had returned. Like, oh man, I used to spend so much money from my own paycheck, like at the store where I worked, where it was just like, this is a Backstreet Boys CD for $1. Yes, I will take that.
Yep.
I feel like I missed out. I never worked in retail. I worked in hospitality and catering, like literally 16 years old, got a job in a hotel. And I worked in the hotels until I was like 21. And it was great. I loved it. Like, there's nothing better.
You did not miss anything, not working retail, brother.
Although I will say that job is still, to this day, one of the best jobs I ever had. I absolutely loved it. I guess it's like the equivalent of my comic shop. I've always loved reading, and just being able to work in a place where I loved like all of the stuff, not all of it, but like, most of the stuff that we had, it was like, kid couldn't have a better dream than that. Like it was awesome at like first job ever at 16. And I was at the time, like it'd be chump change now, but at the time I was making above minimum wage at 16. I thought I was hot shit.
So final Scott Pilgrim, the book question. The book ends with them all going to a band. Obviously, as we know, it's got Scott's ex in it, Ramona's ex in it, and it leads into Scott Pilgrim and the Infinite Sadness in volume 3. And as we joked many a time, we'll be back next December for that. But what is your favorite? Well, so these books are set in the 90s or mid 90s. What is your favorite sort of rock or type punk band of that era?
Oh, just one? Oh man.
Oh no, give me a couple. Go on, shout it out. 2, 3, 4. Go on, you can have a couple. There's no infinite number or anything like that.
Favorite mid 90s. There were so many. So many. Like I was into like the alt rock stuff. So like I really liked like Matchbox 20 and Third Eye Blind, 8 Stop 7, Everclear, Live. All of those bands were my jam. I also was a big teeny bopper, so I did love Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, but like bands, like, oh man, yeah. So Matchbox 20, Third Eye Blind, like in that realm of bands was where my jam was.
What about you, Robbie?
Oasis, Blur, Smashing Pumpkins, Bush, Alice in Chains. Those ones at that time from that era for sure.
Definitely meet you on Oasis. I didn't get into Oasis until it was 1997, the third album. I picked up Be Here Now. I remember I picked that up It came out in August. I remember going, not this means anything to you guys. I went into a big record store called HMV. And I even remember getting a little certificate that said I bought it on the day of release. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's things like Nirvana, Green Day. Trying to think, I liked a little bit of Blur, a little bit of the Chili's. I wasn't a big fan of everything that Chili's put out, but Foo Fighters as well. So I love.
Do you mean the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mark?
Yeah.
The Chili's? Is that what y'all call them over there? The Chili's?
Sometimes. Is that not a thing? Like you guys?
No,
do?
that is not a thing. Not at all.
The Chili's.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know, Chili's for sure.
I get it.
So yeah, no, that was I'm sure that was something we said. No, we must have done. We all said the Chili's. I'm pretty sure we did. You're making me think about it now.
No,
I mean, we might have Chili's. That's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, we might have said Chili Peppers instead of the whole name, but like, I don't think we've ever called them the Chili's.
Yeah, maybe that's just me. No, I'm pretty sure me and my friends said the Chili's. Anyway, I may ask them now afterwards. Did we call them that? They'd be like, no, Mark, we didn't. So they're like, you're just making shit up now. Anyway, any final thoughts on the book at all from any of you?
I mean, it's worth it. It's a great human story. It's about finding yourself. It's about it's a really great story that I think would appeal to a lot of young people, regardless of what decade we're currently in. I think it's got a timeless quality to that. I think it's fun. It's experimental. It's quirky. It's not going to be to everybody's taste. Like if you just want something super serious, or if you don't want something that's like cheesy, like some people may read it and call it like, you know, cheesy or cringe or whatever, but I think it's totally timeless. I think it works. Artwork's great, and I think it just keeps getting better, y'all.
100%. What about you, Jasmine?
I think it is fun. Like it's a fun read. If you don't take anything too seriously, like, you know, it seems like Scott gets progressively like more of an asshole as the books progress. But like, if you put that aside, like the dialogue is hilarious. And I still like, I think I said this when we had our first episode on volume 1, like, the way that they talk to each other, like the friends talk to each other, like it's the way that me and my friends still talk to each other. So it's like Robbie said, it's like timeless. It's relatable because you can, even if that wasn't how you went to high school or that wasn't your high school experience, there's still so many things in this book that I feel like capture the essence of young adulthood, that there's a lot of relatable stuff in the books, even if you don't enjoy the characters as much.
100%. Well, thanks for going through that review with us again, Robbie. And just before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to let people know? What are your plans? Any plans at all for the rest of the year or early 2022?
Well, in 2022, PCP Movie Night over at Pop Culture Philosophers moves to Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. So now Movie Monday returns, as well as still keeping the live format for PCP Movie Nights, just on a different night because, you know, things are getting more closer to normal, and Friday nights are Friday nights, and we don't want to take up too much of your time. But most Monday nights, we all know what's going on. So you can hang out and talk about movies with us. And also, December 23rd, Festivus. Join us for our 4th annual, I believe, Festivus stream over at PCP. I'm very excited for that. We're going to air our grievances, show feats of strength, and then and just have a good old time.
Festivus for the rest of us. I love it.
You know it.
So did you when you did the movie the Monday night? I remember now the movie night used to be on Monday. Is that so you can start going back out again on Fridays and things like that?
Things like that. Maybe just not do anything.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Just finish work and just have a pizza and have a beer, you mean?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But go out and do things like, you know, have more social things, stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Obviously, the book club itself was kind of, the idea of it was to cover essential type graphic novels. We were wondering if there's anything that you've discovered throughout 2021 since we last spoke, if there's anything you want to add to our list that's essential.
Yeah, sure. You mean like is like something from this year or something just like from whatever?
Yeah, no, well, I meant more like old that you discovered
Okay.
this year since you last spoke on the book club.
Well, I had rediscovered something recently, the work of Daniel Clowes. And so I've been diving back into some of that stuff. And I hadn't read this stuff in years. And so he did 8-Ball. He's the guy who did Ghost World. So a lot of people are familiar with his work on the movie because he was the screenwriter, right?
Okay,
but it's based on his comic book work. He's got a lot of great comic book works that I've been diving back into. A lot of it are short stories that came from 8-Ball that get put together in graphic novels. So there's Ghost World. There's Like a Velvet Glove Cast in Iron. There's Poussey, though a caricature. Those are really amazing comics that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And one of my goals in 2022 is to dive back into my early days in the indie comics and bring out some stuff that I don't hear too many people talking about. And it's funny, I actually have one of them in front of me. But like, I would love to see some coverage on Daniel Clowes. Like, I think Ghost World would be one of the most accessible and recognizable ones to get into. Graphic novel, fantastic, really good stuff.
We'll add those to our list. We'll let you know if we ever do them, like, or when we do. Not whenever, we will do them. Ghost World's definitely something I want to read. I have heard of Ghost World, but never read it. So it's something I'm curious to read. So our book club will return next year. We haven't decided what we're doing in January yet. We will let you know. We'll post it on social media. But yeah, just stay tuned, really. You can also follow Geeks Unleashed everywhere. Geeks Unleashed is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And where can they find you, Robbie?
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Join the PCP Army, the official Pop Culture Philosophers Facebook group. You can follow me on Twitter at Rockin Robbie. But most importantly, Pop Culture Philosophers on YouTube station.
And you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify. We are everywhere. So please leave us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
And YouTube, give us the like, the subscribe,
Yes,
etc.
like and
etc.
subscribe.
Yeah. Anyway, see you next year.
Have a good one. Good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey.